Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Do a quick round of introduction. Gireesh, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Gireesh Sahukar. I lead the Digital Innovation Hub for Dawn Foods, and I also oversee our digital platforms here at Dawn.
Kelly?
And I'm Kelly Goetsch. I'm CPO of commercetools, and I'm also president and co-founder of the MACH Alliance.
Thank you. My name is Nishant Patel. I am the CTO and founder at Contentstack. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Gireesh and Kelly. Let's get right into it. Kelly, you've been a longtime evangelist of the MACH concept, philosophy, and also you're spearheading the MACH Alliance. Do you want to talk about what exactly is MACH? Why should people care?
Sure. It's an entirely new approach to digital experience and to technology in general. But it's an acronym. It's the M is for microservices, and that means breaking up your application into smaller, more granular pieces, and the ability to release each of those pieces to production independently. A is for APIs. So that's us as a vendor and Contentstack as well. We expose all of our data and functionality through APIs. And then the C is cloud. So that's multi-tenant SaaS cloud, where as a customer, somebody like Dawn Foods, for example, doesn't have to consume a packaged software application that they'd then have to download and run and install and patch and manage. What we in Contentstack and other MACH Alliance members offer is real SaaS, which is you consume the functionality as a service. And then finally, the H is for headless. So we expose everything through an API, but we also don't ship with UIs. So we are headless platforms. You know, the principle is as a customer, somebody like Dawn, it's hard for us as vendors to dictate what their front end should be. So as vendors, we expose everything through APIs and we don't have an opinion on what that head should be. And then it's up to the customer to either build or buy their own head. And that could be web, it could be mobile, it could be native app. You know, take your pick. It's all pretty mature these days. So vendors, you know, Contentstack and commercetools, we were co-founders of the Alliance. And we got together with EPAM and Vaultec and Ampliance, and we founded this alliance of like-minded vendors. We're now up to 19 total members. And we are, as an alliance, defining what it means to be MACH certified, because we have lots of other competitors out there who say, well, we're MACH certified too. You know, we're API first, you know, and as an alliance, we have a very strict set of criteria so that certification stamp actually means something.
Kind of digging a little bit more into this MACH kind of concept. There's companies that are kind of in different various stages, I would say. Like if you're a new company that's just starting, you can adopt this philosophy and kind of just have that in your DNA from the very beginning. But then there's companies that are kind of somewhere in the middle, and then there's companies that are still kind of in the traditional model, right? Like if you can give some type of guidance of how would you kind of go about the MACH kind of philosophy, right? So there's a technology stack, plus there is people and processes. So if you can just kind of share your thoughts on that.
So I would say organizations of any size can and should adopt this approach. It just makes sense these days. You know, I'd say if you're a, you know, big old school IBM shop, you know, you need to develop some competency in-house, right? And that requires being able to consume an API. That includes being able to procure API first and microservice based vendors like us, because the procurement process is different. And it also requires having a different mindset. It requires iteration, therefore innovation. You have to get rid of this old school waterfall approach where you have a release once every quarter to production. So it's technology, but it's also organizational change. It's also a mindset change. It's quite a few things. But what I would say is this is absolutely the default now for startups and for enterprises that are at least even a little bit technically mature.
What you just mentioned is, along with the technology stack, it's kind of the philosophy of the MACH. you also have people in process, and it's kind of the change, like it's constantly changing. So the process is, agile, and the agile methodologies and things like that that you can kind of adopt. One thing I would say is from Contentstack perspective, I mean, ourselves, we provide a headless content management system. For us to scale, it's a constant change as well, and we're constantly decoupling our services and individually making them scale. So yeah, thanks, Kelly. Gireesh, can you talk a little bit about where Don Foods was and what the goal were, and then how, what sort of plans that you guys have put in place, and you're in the midst of it, right? You recently released your first version.
Sure. Don has been around for a long time. We started out as a donut shop in Jackson, Michigan back in 1920. And so we went from being that one small donut shop to a large B2B manufacturer and distributor of bakery ingredients over the last 100 years. That's what we are today. We operate in 110 countries around the globe, and we're one of the largest suppliers of bakery ingredients. When you think about all that and see how we could accomplish that, you would think we have a lot of technology. In fact, the opposite was true. Most of how we did our business was through old school B2B ways of doing business, which is people calling on each other over telephones or making in-person visits, or as technology progressed, we were receiving orders by fax. So about a year ago, when I started at Don Foods, we looked at how do we improve the efficiency of our sales team? What do we need to do? So we looked at everything that our salespeople do on a daily basis, which involved a lot of walking through the storage area of a bakery, looking up what that customer ordered the previous week, how much of that inventory do they have left, and what do they need to reorder, and creating new orders. So it did not leave a lot of time for any qualitative interactions. And we said, if we move a lot of this inventory management and order functionality to a self-service model where our customers will have full control of that ordering process, they can take a look at what they have in their storage, and they can build their cart and submit an order when they're ready. It takes a lot of the time off of the sales rep and the customer's schedules, and they can have more of those qualitative conversations. And that's essentially what we went through. We looked at a whole bunch of e-commerce platform solutions as to how we go about building this and building it in a way that is efficient and intuitive for our customers. We wanted to give them a really good experience. So we designed and put together a e-commerce solution that involved putting together a MACH-based architecture, and we fully embrace that. We see microservices as the next wave of e-commerce platforms, and that's where the platforms are all evolving to, or if you prefer, the MACH revolution is taking them to. It allows greater flexibility and control for development teams, for business users, as well as for our customers in how we can develop, deliver, and define solutions. And we think that is the power of a MACH-based approach. You can independently change services. You can independently modify any of the underlying application sets without actually impacting customers. You can realize that zero downtime type of a update nirvana with MACH-based approaches.
You said you want to go down this MACH sort of philosophy. I'm assuming in Don Foods, but people have been around for a long time. How did you get them to change?
We make sure that we work with all of our people as our partners, and we listen to them. We make sure that we give them the time, space, and understand their points of view and opinions, and make sure that they're all heard, and we take that into account. In terms of going from where we were to where we are, right? We did not have an e-commerce footprint or an e-commerce presence. So we had to start from ground zero. We had to build everything from the ground up. Like you mentioned, the risk-free approach would have been to go with a monolith, right? But having been there, done that, there's no risk-free approaches there, right? Implementation of a monolith can take multiple years, and you may not end up with the results and outcomes that you want out of that. We've all been there. So the approach that microservices and this MARC architecture gives you is to be able to quickly try and build something and make sure that it works. If it does not, then you haven't spent a lot of time or effort on it, and you can move on fairly rapidly. You will be able to fail forward fast. With monoliths, you don't have that opportunity. You've kind of locked yourself into pretty lengthy, expensive types of contracts that you can't easily undo. So you've got all kinds of risks, even with that quote unquote risk-free approach that you're taking. From a organizational standpoint, we talk to pretty much every e-commerce platform out there. We talk to every CMS, every PIM, every solution, you name it. We talked to them over the back half of last year, and we ended up with a idea that most everyone is trying to make their platforms become more API centric or API driven, which means that is where technology is moving to. So everything else flowed from there, saying, okay, if APIs are the thing that we need to go after, then how do we sort of take that architectural approach? What is the right architecture for it? So we sort of walked our way through discovery into the MARC architecture. And then it was just a matter of finding the right set of platforms, partners, and implement it. We started at the beginning of this year. Within about 20 or 22 weeks, we went from no code to a fully built out site, and we launched 5 weeks ago. And our customer response has been tremendous since then.
One thing Kelly, this is I'm sure you share this personal kind of pain or frustration when you have your traditional vendors that go out and say, hey, we're also MACH. Just by being API first, right? Like, how do you guys kind of take that when they just change a marketing message, but the technology is kind of the same?
We tell folks to read the documentation of our competitors. And if you go to Magento's documentation, for example, it'll say system prerequisites, and it talks about PHP and operating system version and everything else. Then we'll ask the customer, if you have to care about which PHP version you have running, is that a service? The answer is no, right? And then there's also all the legacy platforms, they claim to have 100% API coverage. But then you read the documentation and it says, well, to get data in the system, we recommend executing this query against the database. Right? Does that sound like it's API first? No. There shouldn't even be the concept of a database with the true multi-tenant SaaS platform, right? Because the vendor deals with that as an implementation detail, and as the customer, they shouldn't have to. And now with the Alliance, it's even easier, because now you can just go to the machalliance.org website and you can see which vendors have actually achieved accreditation through our process, and for sure then that those vendors are actually MACH compliant.
Awesome. The cool thing about the MACH kind of philosophy, again, people, not just the tech stack, but the people process, is you can start small, right? Like, you don't have to kind of just rip and replace the entire thing. You can take a small, problem area and kind of apply this concept and kind of gradually go towards that if you need to.
I think it's just a change in mindset. You have a lot of folks out there who are used to doing things the old way.
If you're going up against a lot of people that are that don't want change, I would, because of this whole kind of architecture where you can start small, maybe you can take a challenge and then kind of prove this new, implementation using some of these vendors and get management buy-in. And it's not a big project. It's not a rip and replace. There's so many things you can do with the MACH concept and kind of slowly get people to see the value of it, right?
Yeah, from my perspective, this is, to get started on the MACH stack and to become really productive is a much shorter time frame. So it should not scare anyone that is thinking about it. If you're evaluating it, I can provide my full throated endorsement that this is the way to go. We've got the site to prove it. If you want to talk to me about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, something similar, which is the time to adopt this is now. I think we've been laying the building blocks over the past probably 5-6 years. And we're now finally to the point where this is mainstream. This is the default. And I think the MACH Alliance is proof of that, and all the vendors we have participating in that alliance. And we just look at the big name customers, Don, of course, it's a who's who of everyone in retail and telco and manufacturing. This is not just some niche thing, right? This is for the mass market today.
So well said, gentlemen. Thank you for an awesome conversation. I think we can continue to go on for another hour. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.